Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the modern market, where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make some or a lot of money on the internet. Loaded up for discussion today, we have the Bank of America CEO planning to enter the stablecoin business. That is interesting news. We've also got Bybit shares, their investigation report, concluding that the malicious code originated in safe wallet infrastructure. That is pretty big news. We'll dive into what is important to know there. And also Kaito absolutely leaving the sellers in I don't know, all kinds of emotions. They're feeling a lot of things at the moment, up almost 3x from the point at which they launched at almost 2.8 billion FDV now. We've also got the latest on price action on crypto and NFTs, plus a general discussion on the market, and also going to be catching up with our good friend, the media sensation out of Chile. We've got Legendary on the show as usual, but we do have Clemente with us too. Clemente, welcome to the show. How are you doing, my friend? How are you doing?
Good morning, guys. It's good to be here. Big fan of you guys. Big fan of the show, and it's been. I actually realized I think it's the first time I've been on it, despite I do listen when I can while I'm working out. Usually I work out in the mornings, but I have the morning off today, so I'll be super excited to be here and excited to chat about some of these things. Missed the Kaito, sold the Kaito, of course. I tweeted about it. I'm such an idiot because I tweeted about. I was thinking about it. I sold it, and I'm like, wait, this is, I think, the airdrop to hold, because we saw some weird things. I saw IP pumping, which is another airdrop, and I saw like Bearer Chain starting to recover. I'm like, okay, everyone's gonna nuke this thing. Everyone's gonna nuke this thing. And then I'm like, they kind of have an interesting product. They have the social fi, they have the AI layer, and I'm like, and then I tweeted out when it was like $1.40. I'm like, this thing's gonna go to $5. But I'm going to wait until it pulls back below $1.20 because I got this thing free. It was a mental thing. It was a mental thing. And then Loopify and ICO both comment. They're like, wait, if you think this thing can do a 3.5x, why are you waiting for another 10% pullback? And I'm like,
good question.
I'm like, hey, I don't know. And now it's up 2x. So I learned my lesson, and now I'm sidelined to this.
The question still stands though, Clemente. If you think it's still got like a 1.5x, you could always buy now.
I still think it's interesting. We'll talk about it later on in the show, but I'm very interested in Kaito still. But now we're seeing the question is whether it has enough of a moat as this product, right? Because we're seeing now, what is this thing? Quack, right?
I think HubSpot, the hub is an alternative as well.
Yeah.
Look, that's actually a great question. And I've definitely got some thoughts on that. Let's hit that one a little bit later in the show. We're going to discuss Kaito in more detail in just a little bit, but great to have you with us, man. Also want to chat just a little bit on your media trajectory at the moment. You've gone in a couple of interesting directions recently, so we'll catch up on that too before we get into the main stuff. Legendary, checking in with you this morning. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
Jim, doing quite well, as long as I don't look at the Kaito chart, which I have to do for the last piece of news. And my theory actually is, before the show, Clemente told us he has to leave a couple minutes early. I think you're hoping to get away to not have to look at the Kaito chart and to not have to reflect on your selling decision, just like I have to do.
Yeah, exactly. It's terrible. Okay. It's terrible.
Well, we might have to juggle the headlines around, because the Kaito headline was scheduled at the end. So we might have to inflict that pain on all of us a little bit earlier. I can't let you get away without feeling that pain, Clemente. Right. So that's that. Let's get in, before we get into all that good stuff, let's get into the price action as usual, get you up to speed with everything that you need to know, starting with the majors. We have, it's not looking so great, but not as bad as it was at one point yesterday. Bitcoin down a couple of percent to 86. I think it went as low as 82, 83 yesterday. ETH is also down 4% to 2.3. XRP down a couple of percent to 2.2. BNB is down a couple of percent to 610. Solana is actually up on the day now to 139, but still down 20% in a week. Biggest of all the majors. Getting into the meme coin side of things, interestingly, things have been a bit better here in the last 24 hours. Doge is basically flat. Pepe's up 3%. Trump's up 1%. Bonk is up a few percent. WIF's up 8%. Pengu's up 5%. We have AI16Z up 8%. Fartcoin up 11%. So kind of a big divergence here, right? The majors are down unanimously, down a few percent. Popcat's up 16%. Now, I'm not saying it's pretty for these meme coins over the month or over a longer period of time, but they've bounced, in contrast to the other majors going down quite aggressively recently. So that is that. On that side, getting into the headlines themselves, we have, and this is for discussion more later, more in the show. We've got the Bank of America CEO planning to enter the stablecoin business. Said it's pretty clear there's going to be a stablecoin. He added that stablecoins are digital assets like Bitcoin, but backed by the US dollar, making them akin to a money market fund with check access or a bank account. If they make that legal, we will go into that business. Obviously, there's a lot of momentum in the US around the stablecoin bill. It's like everything else is probably going to wait. It seems like the stablecoin bill is the priority. So let's see how that proceeds. We've got Bybit sharing their investigation report and concluding that the malicious code actually originated in Safe Wallet's infrastructure. Safe Wallet is the multi-sig wallet that a lot of crypto companies and institutions use when they want to have multi-sig access. So it's not just one person signing a transaction. It's got to go around a few people. Obviously, usually people think it's safer, but not in this case. So we'll dive into the details there to try and get a sense of what is actually the most important thing to know if you have a Safe Wallet too, and if you operate in that way. And then finally, as we mentioned, Kaito is absolutely surging. The InfoFi protocol surging 50% in the last 24 hours against the backdrop of everything else happening in the market where everything else is tanking, up to a 2.8 billion FDV. Now, shout out to the people who held and staked and maybe even bought. Getting in, so that's that. Those are the main stuff. Legendary, what's going on the NFT side of things? How's that reacted to the rest of the market?
Nothing too exciting to be honest there. Bored Apes basically flat at a 13.1 ETH floor. Pudgy Penguins, they are up a bit. They're up almost 2.5% at a 9.2 ETH floor. Have managed to go back above 9 ETH. Ladies, however, down almost 4%, 3.75 ETH floor. Doodles down even more, down 7%, 3.23 ETH floor. Azuki's 2.72 ETH floor, down another 2%. And also wanted to check in with the Kaito Genesis NFTs, given the aggressive move on the ERC20 side of things. However, they are only up 6.6% at a 3.15 ETH floor.
Ordinals look good. I was looking at ordinals this morning when I was writing the newsletter. I was like, oh, we got OMBs up 20% to 0.034. That's up over 50% from their Black Eyes mint. Puppets up 11%. I saw them at 0.038 Bitcoin or something a day and a half ago. I was like, oh, damn, these things are down bad. We're seeing a little bit of a bounce, which is good to see, but I still think too soon to tell on the NFT bounce anytime soon.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was looking at Puppets yesterday as well. At around 4K, that starts to sound like really cheap, right? But then simultaneously, like the 10% bounce when it's only 4K, it's kind of not as much as it once was. It's kind of less significant because the values dropped so much. But I tend to think like the premier NFT or ordinal or whatever for any chain, especially one like ordinal, should probably be in that 10K region. But yeah,
I think Puppets for me are, I've long said this, I think they go to 100K. It's not looking like it now. What I like about Puppets though is, or what I like about ordinals in general is it's every buyer has common expectations. When you look at like some of these ETH NFTs, there's different types of buyers. There's some that are collectors. Sure. There's some that are, hey, I'm buying this for some token airdrop like Doodles, right? And there's that like execution risk that goes into it. With something like Puppets or a lot of these other collectibles, it's just, this is a luxury asset, basically. It's a collectible that I'm buying. I like that versus having to monitor, oh, what's the team going to do? So that's why I personally am interested. I don't know about Puppets, but ordinals in general.
I like it. I think you're right there on the Puppet side. Probably applies to Node Monks as well. And just to contrast it with the other kind of option that people have, Quantum Cats, I think, is one which is loaded up with that VC valuation, and we'll be expecting some kind of, whether it's a rune or a token or something as part of that. That's why that's held up at 0.2 BTC for so long. Insane.
They've raised twice. This is the second. They announced their second fundraise. What was it? Like a month ago. They have OpCat coming up. My thesis has been that they bring back like a little bit of a Ordinals mini run when Taproot Wizards finally, if they ever come. I mean, it's been almost, I literally think it's been a year since Quantum Cats were or not Quantum Cat, Taproot Wizards were first like teased or announced. This
You know what? You just mentioned the Wizards. I'd completely forgotten that there was ever going to be a wizard. I'd forgotten. There's going to be wizards.
People are expecting, yeah, a live cat and a dead cat. So for 0.4, you have to think Taproot Wizards go above 1 Bitcoin. Would be my prediction, but I don't know. I mean, they're probably waiting for another 3, 4, 5, 6 months before they have anything with that.
Interesting. Nice to touch on the Ordinals side. Haven't thought about them for a while, but you're right, getting kind of attractive price there. Let's just get into the Web3 round to get people up to speed with everything else they might need to know. We've had the FBI confirming North Korea was behind the 1.5 billion Bybit hack. We had pump fund volume decreasing by over 50% in the last week, really going off a cliff as people kind of exiting the Solana meme coin casino, looking for other pastures at the moment. Got the Ethereum Foundation donating 1.25 million to the legal defense of Tornado Cash dev. We've got the Wolvesdale application for its Avalanche airdrop going live. That just went live, I think, yesterday or this morning. Probably worth taking a look at. And we had Lucanet, legendary. You mentioned the Pudgy price going up. Would not be surprised if it was in connection to some of his comments yesterday. Although he's kind of been consistent with this message for quite some time. He said Penguin's ecosystem will eat at TGE. XP boosts are an additional perk that Penguins get if they want to participate. It's a 2-for-1 special. I don't think that's anything really different to what he's been saying before, but maybe people forget, you know, what people are like here. And then finally, Avalanche launched the AVAX credit card yesterday. A lot of people coming with cards now. So interesting to see every chain or different financial protocols kind of moving into that banking realm, because I think it's a really, really needed part of the ecosystem. So
I use the card. I got access to the AVAX card. It's the first crypto card I've ever used. It's fantastic using that as an off-ramp. You have to KYC and everything.
Sure.
But being able to go, oh, like I want to pay for something, and all I have to do is send money from my Rabby wallet, MetaMask, whatever, to this wallet address, and I can literally pay something with crypto in instantly. Phenomenal, because now you don't have to deal with the Coinbase and the, oh, they're going to lock up my funds. They're going to take 3 business days to transfer my money. Like you can just do it instantly. It's pretty cool.
That's pretty awesome. What do they do? Is there much on the rewards side, Clemente? Because I think one of the things people are trying to entice people with like interest or, you know, native Bitcoin. We spoke the other day about the Fold app, which is like a Bitcoin one where it's like savings and then you get 2% in Bitcoin or something.
Yeah, I don't know enough about that one. I know we're talking to Gemini about they're rolling out a credit card that's going to be pretty high. That they're going to be rolling into that aspect of it. This is just like straight up using your card. You know, what's good, though? I'm waiting for that Blast card. That Blast card with 5% native yield powered by Paradigm. I mean, that's going to just change the world.
That would be pretty good. I think they're all taking the card route for sure. A couple people in the comments asking, do these cards work in the EU? All of the, I think you just got to check the rules, guys. Got to check the rules. Everything's different. I'm not sure if there's been like a complete global rollout immediately. So you got to just check on individual bases there. Before we get into the main headlines, boys, anything that's catching your attention from the roundup, legendary, and then I'll come to you, Clemente, as well. Before we get to that main, the meat and bones, Ledge, anything catching your attention here?
Yeah, that vertical integration that so many companies are going for with credit cards is like fascinating to see, because on the one hand you have stablecoin market cap increasing, which is something that we'll touch on either way, and then you have that credit card market, which is vastly different in the US from Europe, where in the US you get like your 1-2% in cashback with really good credit cards, which is something that the EU typically does not do. However, the crypto credit cards are super generous in the European Union. And it's interesting to see those different approaches. You have the DeFi heavy ones where essentially you can borrow against your stack, which makes it more tax efficient in certain jurisdictions. You have others where with EtherFi or even Moonwell on Base, The idea kind of is that you don't touch your principal, but you only spend your yield on the credit card. I've been maining a couple crypto credit cards for the last years and basically doing all my day-to-day, all my travels, everything with them. I feel like the only time that I had an issue is when I like showed up at the car dealership and I was like, can I pay the car with credit card? Which is highly, highly unusual to do here. And they were like, no, can't you just wire that? And then I realized that one of the crypto credit cards I'm using actually now also has a bank account where you basically can take a loan against yourself, against your stable deposit, and then use that to wire someone money, which is pretty impressive, like how feature rich all of those crypto credit cards have become. But at the end of the day, it's also like causing a lot of fractionalization, because you will have every L2 major protocols offering their own credit card, and you will end up with potentially using 7 or 8 different credit cards for different benefits. There could even be a future where you use a specific credit card to farm a protocol's airdrop. So that could get a bit weird in terms of how you're going to approach using those.
I like the way you're thinking, though. That's interesting. As in, like, you can use credit from your credit card to farm like different things with capital that you don't have yet. Kind of like it. I like the idea. Clemente, what is catching your attention? Either on the news side, which you just mentioned, before we get into the main headlines, going to deal with that in a second. But also maybe separately, like definitely want to touch on with you how you're balancing the trading stuff, which you're obviously deep involved in, but also like the content side. You've been making huge, we're definitely going in some interesting directions, both on the Malay, the Malay, I don't know what the debacle in Argentina. You were kind of commenting and appearing in all kinds of media publications on the more serious side. You've also been doing the more humorous songs, raps, going in the musical creative direction. How have you been balancing the two? What are you thinking about these days?
Yeah, as far as trading goes and like balancing that between the other, like pretty much my North Star has turned into content. And I actually think when I trade, basically I only make trades if I feel like I can make content out of it. And content is actually a really good hedge against trades that you make, at least for me, because if I tweet about something and I'm like, hey, this is really interesting, and I can make a video out of it, it's a really good growth hack because I'm tweeting about a community. I can tap into an audience of 10,000, 20,000 meme coin holders, and they're going to be like, awesome. This is like someone that's bullish on us. So it's a really good way to like get and tap into new audiences. But if I lose money, I get to make a video on it. If I make money, awesome. Like, so that's an interesting dynamic. The other thing that I think people don't realize with content and people that put themselves out there is you get to tap into really interesting market sentiment. And
what do you mean by that? I know what you mean, but just articulate that.
So, and this is when I realized on, what was it, Tuesday, with the first little mini dump that we had that we were going to go lower, was I tweeted out a video basically of me buying the dip, right? And me basically saying, for people that say you got lucky in crypto in 4 years or in 2 years, show them this video. And it was a video of me basically showing my screen. Here, I'll share my screen real quick just so you can see kind of what the vibe of the video is like. So it's when people say you got lucky in crypto in 2 years, show them this video. And basically I posted the exact same video, word for word, same vibes a month ago. And it was really interesting seeing the difference between the two, because this was pre-Libra. It was when the trenches were still hot and Solana was still at 190 or whatever it was. And the comments I got a month ago were people saying, dude, I bought the dip as well. Like, this is what you're like, so true. This is what people don't see. On Monday or Tuesday, not only did I not get the hopeful comments, but it was a ghost town. It was a level of like hopelessness where I was like, oh shit, the vibes have shifted. Like, this is no longer buy every dip territory. It's preserve your capital, it's survive, and it's pick your moves very, very carefully. So that was an interesting takeaway for me, where I'm like, okay, I was way too early to buy the dip. I'm down like 10 or 15% on those buys. but that was an interesting piece where I'm like, okay, the content piece there in the comments like is a really interesting sentiment check.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I've noticed that as well. And I think one of the other reactions that you get as things shift is not just, I mean, the first one was maybe supportive, the next one was apathy. Then another part of the spectrum is just anger. Like, how could you be expressing this particular view that you have? You're so wrong. I got that the other day just by saying, guys, I don't think Trump is incentivized to pump the market yet. And people are just annoyed at me for saying that. Like, he's taking a wrecking ball to international and domestic relationships. Look, I don't think he's going to do that for the whole term. Like, I think he believes the markets and wants them to pump, but I just expressed that view. And again, as you say, it's me being authentic. Like, that is the thing that I think, but you just get that feedback, which is super interesting.
The vibes are negative, right? They feels like things are finally like washing out a little bit, but it was like for the last 3 or 4 weeks, it's the most negative I've ever seen crypto Twitter. And well, it's a very niche group of people in crypto. There's a commenter saying Kaito's down 6% since I joined the show. That's not ideal. But in general, with crypto and all these things right now, I think part of the reality is this is the least exposure people have had to Bitcoin. And they've been massively exposed to meme coins and like this trenching world, which there's nothing wrong with it, but know what you're getting yourself into, right? My whole problem with trenching has been like, I'm like, oh my God, there's people that are in this world of crypto that are joining at such a freaking awesome time, but they're spending it like all day looking at meme coins, when in reality, like you could be trying to build a skill, you could be trying to get into something. I'll tell a super quick story because I think it relates to what we're dealing with right now. I got into NFTs. I got into crypto through NFTs in October of 2021. And I was just finishing college. I took basically all of my savings that I had, which was like 20K. I put it all into Ethereum and I started trading NFTs. And for 4 months, basically, all I did was sit in Discord and Twitter all day and basically thinking, how can I flip NFTs? How can I take as much value from people or projects and profit off of it? For 4 months, I ran the 20K bag up to like 70K. I was like, I'm a genius, when in reality, it was just the market doing well. And then through a phishing scam, I lost 30K, 35K in one day. Worst day of my life.
Damn.
And then I realized, I was like, oh, I've been in crypto for 4 months, but I have nothing to show for it. I've built no skill, zero. I haven't networked with anyone. I haven't done anything. I haven't taken advantage of like this super cool industry. And it was that then forced me. And I was like, oh shit, I need to like actually build something or try to like learn a new skill, or else there's no point in me being in here if I'm just going to gamble on like anything. So I think that's one thing that people are starting to realize, where they're like, I've been trenching every day for the last 6 months, right? And now all of us, I've learned this super niche skill that now like doesn't matter as much. We saw like 60 tokens graduate from Pump Fund yesterday, and they're like, how do I apply this skill into anything else? And I think people are starting to look for ways to build their skills and kind of add more value to crypto in some fashion.
I think your thinking is the exact trajectory that I went through at the end of 2022. I was like, oh, I can't remember when it was, but like, this thing's not going to last forever. I better build something more significant if I don't want to have to go back to the 9 to 5 and the desk, like, we work around the clock now in this industry doing what we do, but there's clearly value by taking that risk. Before we hit the main stuff in a sec, like, since you've taken it in that direction, I think people would be curious. Like, you've obviously decided content, like what inspired you to just keep doing what you do now and take it in the directions that you do? And are there any other opportunities that, for people who are listening, who are like, might be in that situation that you just described, like what could be helpful to them to find the way for them to contribute to the industry in slightly a bigger way, a more meaningful way, rather than just be focusing on the Pump Fund launches?
Yeah, for me, it was in the creative world, I noticed that most of the content on crypto Twitter related to crypto sucked. Like, and the fact that we're on Twitter, which is a text first platform, meant that you had people, it was text first content from anonymous people, and none of it was very entertaining. I basically sat down, and for like 3 or 4 months, I was like looking at people's content, looking at people's marketing, and trying to find what the biggest gap in the market was. And initially it was helping people with marketing their brands, like their teams, NFT projects, whatever it was, companies. And then I just got into like the video content side. And by the way, if I was in any other industry that wasn't crypto, I would be the shittiest creator ever. Like in no other industry can I have never, like, I didn't start making content until a year ago. And within the first 2 weeks of me making video content, of me showing up, yelling at a phone and just posting it, immediately got traction because there's no other competition. If I was doing that on Instagram about sports or in any other niche, I would have 15 other creators that are dominating me, that have 100 times the audience, that like literally it's impossible to compete unless I have something unique that I'm bringing to the table. Here it's open season, and it's still open season a year later. Who else is doing it? And this applies to video content, but it also applies to so many other things, whether it's podcasting, whether it's people sharing their thoughts on Twitter or whatever it is. It's, can you be consistent? And can you it's actually just showing up and being consistent. The other thing I'll say is the very interesting thing that happens in crypto is very quickly creators in crypto, what usually happens is after about 2 years or whenever the bull market comes around, the class of creators that do well all of a sudden get rich very quickly. And then they lose the hunger, they lose the drive to continue getting better at their craft. I'm not going to say specific names, but there's been so many creators that I've watched that I'm like, these guys are freaking really good. And you watch them get better. You watch them at the very beginning where they're scrapping, they're grinding. And then a year later, the hard work pays off, which is awesome. But then they lose that commitment. So it's a really unique industry where you have people like, the opportunity is so big for the top performers that opportunity then creates a weird effect where you have people that are not getting as good. So like, and you're even seeing it now. I tweeted this last week where I was like, man, it's so interesting seeing people that I think I kind of came into crypto with and started building skills with, like you guys, like Tyler D, like ICO, starting to like reap the benefits of what they've been doing for the last 2 years or so. But what happens with other people, I don't think it's going to happen with you guys or some of these other people. When you start reaping those rewards, it makes it harder to be like, okay, I'm going to show up and write the newsletter. I'm going to show up and do the little things that got me to this spot. So, and when you look at content in any other game, you look at like these sports guys, Stephen A. Smith, these commentators have been doing it for 40 years. I've been doing it for 1. So I'm like, oh shit, what else can I keep building my skills on? And lastly, because just to make this relevant for the audience, is if I were to look at like the biggest gaps that exist in the market right now, the number one thing I would do if I was starting from zero today is you have to start with a niche. You have to start with a niche that you can absolutely dominate in and lead with as much value as possible. I did it with Blast a year ago. ICO Beast did it really well with AI and base AI meme coin. Sammy as well. AI crushed that. I saw this guy named Walls_ETH do it with Kaito. And you have to find the niche that you can tap into. I think Kaito is still a very interesting niche to get into, and you can just saturate the hell out of. But find what it is that there is an opportunity in and really lean into that. I think SocialFi right now is a largely untapped market of someone showing up and just crushing it every single day. So just find the niche. I think it's SocialFi right now that's very interesting, and just dominate that. Like, and you're going to find that by saturating those opportunities and by really leaning in and adding as much value to that as possible. And by the way, adding value can be just you being your authentic self. Like, it doesn't have to be you doing the, I think initially I was very self-conscious of sharing my stances or my takes on Twitter, because I'm like, dude, what do I have? Like, what do I know? And I still kind of feel that way, but it's not. Figuring out what your competitive advantage is really important. My competitive advantage is I'm going to show up every single day, and like what I lack for in skill, I'm just going to work that much harder. But the other thing is like the reason why I think people watch some of my videos and my takes is not because it's well thought out or it's well articulated or I'm a great trader. No, it's because like people like to consume content, and if you can consume it in an entertaining way, awesome. And anyways, that's the long shot. I just rambled for like 7 minutes straight. I apologize.
The comments are loving it. Straight fire. Clemente's preaching. They're lapping it up. But I think there's so much truth to what you said. I got really nothing to add, because a lot of the sentiment we expressed, I think we kind of either are coming at all of this stuff from a very, very similar angle. We came in at the same time, similar thought process, similar work ethic, similar dedication to just being consistent. So if people are wondering how to do it, there's no way to just do it. And as you said, the huge competitive advantage that anyone who's consistent has in this industry is that other people will give up. So many people give up. They just stop. The bar in general is not that high. There's a supply demand problem. Think of this, and I'll leave you this. Then we got to get into the main headlines. The Kaito leaderboard now, this is me with my business hat on. The Kaito leaderboard right now is having waves and waves and waves of protocols coming to market every single day, every single week. There's more and more coming, right? Because they've got all this money sloshing around in crypto, and all of these teams are coming to market. They've got money to spend to try and get their message out there. And how many media outlets are there? How many creators are there? I know that there are some, but how many are doing it consistently, getting in the right kind of audience segment? I think, for on the outlet side, there's not as many as you would expect for an industry that is like overflowing with all of these protocols. So
it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous the amount of money that's in this industry and the number of participants, like from a content perspective or a media perspective, that exists right now. It is wild, and you'll be shocked by how much of a difference you can make literally by just showing up. You don't have to do anything special. Just show up, be consistent, be brutally honest with yourself about feedback and like whether or not your content's good or not, and just continue getting better. Because the worst thing that happens is your content sucks, no one watches it. Oh, awesome. And you just move on. But like just this like brutally showing up every single day, it's insane how much of a difference it'll make. In any other industry, if you're trying to do that, you're going to have to grind for months, and your content's going to have to be so much better. Here, the bar is so low that literally just showing up, you're like, okay, awesome. I'm going to get like a $4,000 airdrop for having done like an hour of work every day for like 30 days. Like that's pretty good to me.
This is where you really need to find a long-term motivation, because otherwise exactly that happens what you just said, Clemente. You will have people. I mean, think about the AVEX season right now. If someone did cat and wing pre-sale and traded that well or very well, they made 7 figures on that. So basically show up for AVEX, be there a couple months, get those allocations. I know there's like a couple ifs in that logic, but if you don't have a long-term motivation that goes beyond just making money, you will probably lose the hunger after you make $1 million on 2 pre-sales and then just going to move on, which then again kind of increases the asymmetry between like content creation opportunities and creators hunting for them, because a lot of people who make it, they're just going to leave. They're not hungry enough to like keep grinding that out and scale that to say 8 figures.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult, and keeping yourself like grounded in this, because when the bull market comes around, you're like, ooh, maybe I should create less content and start trading and finding these opportunities. I fell into that trap in end of November, early December. I got really into like shit coining and trenching for like 2 or 3 weeks. And I was making pretty good money. And I was like, oh, why would I just made $4,000 in like 30 minutes yet, like just now. Why would I not just keep doing that instead of making a video right now? And like my content was shit for like 2.5 weeks, and my dopamine level was all screwed up. I literally was like, I couldn't work. I couldn't do regular work because I was like, oh, I'd rather trench right now. I'd rather go like gamble on this. And like, it completely screwed up my work ethic. And I think once you go through the bear market and you're a creator in the bear market and you see how dead it gets, it forces you to be like, no, I have to learn this skill. I have to learn this skill. And then the bull comes around, and it's like about staying disciplined and not giving into the distractions.
Love it, man. A lot of wisdom shared there. I think basically on board with a lot of that stuff. A lot of interesting learnings, I think, and kind of definitely empathize with that feeling, or the sacrifice you have to make as a creator, as a business owner, in this industry. But look, let's keep it moving. We've got to get into the main headlines in just a sec. But before we do that, talking of more protocols rolling out into Kaito, we're going to touch in with our partner for today, which is Somnia. Somnia is an EVM layer 1 blockchain that is seriously fast and has just gone live on Kaito Connect. Kaito Connect is a platform where Kaito yappers, NFT holders, and stakers can vote to decide which protocols launch their yapper leaderboards next. Protocols like the yapper leaderboard a lot because it gives them excellent data on which people on X are contributing to a quality discussion about their protocol. The idea is that the protocols can then leverage the information at a later date to reward the most loyal and value-add members of their community. Somnia just went live for voting yesterday because they also want to participate in that process. Somnia has received over 1 million votes already from 596 smart followers and are looking to grow those numbers now. They're also running a specific campaign to incentivize you. So they're giving away to yappers a share of 50,000 USDC and 10 million Somnia points if you vote for them now. So if you want to cast your vote, you need to follow the instructions in the tweet linked below the Twitter Spaces, which takes you to Zeely, which then guides you to vote on Kaito and to share your proof of vote on Zeely. So follow those instructions properly, and hopefully you can get a slice of those rewards.
That's free money. That's free money right there. Insane. Like what? 50K? Hey, just tweet about us. If you rank up high in our mind share, we're going to give you free money. Are you kidding me? Let's go. Let's go.
10 million points. 10 million points as well. Sounds pretty juicy.
I mean, I love points. Who doesn't love them? Let's go.
We love points. Look, so take a look at that. If that is interesting to you, I think a lot of the protocols are doing similar things, but Somnia is the one we are looking at today. Legendary. We've got to get into the headlines. We've got the Bank of America CEO planning to enter the stablecoin business. What do we need to know here? I've got a very important question for you on this after.
Yeah, that's a pretty massive news. Just to put the sizes into perspective, we're talking about one of the largest bank in the US, Bank of America, with more than 3 trillion in assets, actually more than the entire crypto market cap at this point. And the CEO has said that they're considering to enter stablecoins. They do want to enter this $230 billion industry. But the important thing that the bank is waiting on is, of course, more regulatory clarity. There's a couple of acts, a couple of legislations that are proposed on how to proceed with stablecoins in the US. And Bank of America, just to keep it short, is looking at things like the Genius Act, which is focused on stablecoin oversight, to be proposed within the administration's first 100 days. There's also the Clarity for Payment Stablecoins Act of 2024, which would regulate how smaller stablecoin issuers under $10 billion could be regulated on a state level. So there's a lot of legislation, a lot of acts going around how to deal with stablecoins in the US. Bank of America, again, wants to be a part of the business. I think we recently also had touched on Ethena raising 100 mil from TradFi, including Franklin Templeton, to get that exposure to institutional stablecoins. Obviously, banks are looking at that part of the business as well. And this is coming again from a bank that has more in assets than the entire crypto market cap.
I like it. Excellent summary as usual. The one thing I would note is when I read the article, it's not as bullish as the headline itself. So it's like, yes, that is like the general headline. Yes, they're kind of alluding to what this happened. This happens all the time in crypto where you kind of report things as if it's going to happen definitively. And it's like definitely not the case when you read the actual quote of what the person says. So just want to bring that up. But Legendary, the thing that I want to ask, Clemente, I'd be curious for your thoughts here as well. And this is a question that I've been repeatedly asking myself since probably September, October at the back end of last year. We've spoken about it in the show, keep coming back to it. What's the bet to make if this is in that period of time where if ETH was stagnating, it's really underperformed in the cycle in general. What's the bet to make if you want to go long on more stable coins? That seems to be the thing that everyone can kind of agree on. There will be more stable coins in the world in the future. Does that necessarily mean that ETH goes up like people had always thought? Maybe not, given its performance in the last cycle. There are going to be way more chains that are going to be competing for those dollars. So how are we updating our thoughts now on how do we bet on the world with more stable coins in?
I think there's a couple of ways depending on the risk profile to approach that. We had talked on the show about Plasma, which had raised 24 mil to build the leading blockchain for stablecoins, whatever that will
Whatever
mean.
that means, yeah.
Exactly. We will have to wait and see what it means to build a blockchain for stablecoins. Obviously, you can think about infrastructure protocols, stuff like Layer 0 that makes coins exist equally across the segment and spectrum of EVM compatible L2s. There's DeFi protocols that you can think of if you like Aave, if you like Maker, if you like the ones that have the biggest stablecoin lending pools going. There's many ways to get exposure that you could go even as far and say, look, you like Circle, you like Coinbase's association with that. For that, you want to buy the Coinbase stock. I think it really depends on like what part of that stablecoin industry you're trying to bet on and how far the risk curve you want to move with that bet.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I really appreciate Coinbase from a regulatory perspective, and they've been fighting the good fight for a while. It does, the question mark for me is this account thing. Like, why are so many people complaining about the accounts getting frozen? I hold Coinbase stock still, but that's like the one thing about the whole thing. It's just like, doesn't seem to be a good user experience at the moment. Like everything else that they're doing is amazing, but like if the core product is providing that service to people, that's my one question mark there that I'm kind of uncomfortable with at the moment. I take a point about the other chains. I'm kind of liking Athena as well. The ENA token is down a lot from its high, so that's one I'm looking at as well. Clemente, curious on your thoughts here. Then maybe I'll come in with a couple of others before we get into Kaito before you need to head off.
I have no perspective on buying anything, betting on anything stable coin wise. But the thing that's interesting is it doesn't surprise me at all that Bank of America is like, hey, let's get into stable coins. Tether, to put it into perspective, Tether made $13 billion last year. $13 billion in profit. And they have like 150 employees. I was looking at this chart that shows the profit per employee of, if I can pull this up, of Tether versus other companies. Tether has an $85 million profit per employee. That's ridiculous. That's insane. So that doesn't surprise me.
That's just like illegal, isn't it? Like absolutely outrageous. But that's a great statistic. Thanks for bringing that up. Like we've said on this show, like this is the best business in the world. You have to be in this business. If you're a big player, you must be in this business as soon as possible. So yeah, definitely got to consider that. Okay, final thought on the stablecoin thing. I just think Bitcoin is like, I think the more dollars come on chain, at least a proportion of those flow to Bitcoin. That's maybe one of the core things. The rise of Solana this year has definitely shaken my original thesis in ETH. Not because ETH isn't brilliant in the things that it does, but it just means that no, there's legit other chains where people are going to be super happy to build out on. And the thing is, that's actually not just a kind of question mark against ETH. It's also a question mark against Sol, because there's going to be another one And maybe it's about culture and reputation. And so I think there is a bit of a mark now against Solana from this recent stuff. Now, obviously, there's loads and loads of good stuff, loads and loads of great stuff still going on Solana. But maybe someone will think, well, Sui looks pretty damn good as well. That maybe hasn't been through this recent stuff, and maybe that might be a potential option too. So there's just a lot of options out there. Okay, conscious of time today, we've got to keep it moving. Clemente is here for another 5, so I want to get into the Kaito stuff first, because then we'll deal with the Bybit thing. This was the news, Legendary. I think you're just going to set up. I mean, to be honest, the news here is just that.
I'll keep it pretty short. Kaito at the start of the show was trading at $2.75. Currently, we are trading at $2.50, so down 10% since we started the show, which the YouTube comments definitely seem to appreciate.
Clemente, they're not happy.
However, the main thing to observe, it's actually 2 main things. Insane amount of volume, $2 billion in volume, most of that obviously happening on centralized exchanges. Just to put that again in perspective, that is more trading volume on the Kaito token than on BNB in the last 24 hours, which is the 5th largest currency, which is insane. And what we've also seen is Yuhu sharing some of the whales that also got onboarded to Kaito staking, including OG General, who's actually listening to the show today, was staked almost 600,000 Kaito, and a couple other people with like very, very large stakes as well coming out to support the project publicly. Obviously, Yuhu has made the point that everyone's taking and believing in the project long-term counts. And what I personally think, and I'm going to leave it at that because I'm really curious to hear from the 2 of you as well, is that with onboarding all those new protocols and like just keeping the monetization opportunities for creators coming, the protocol Kaito like manages to sustain relevance in a very, very beautiful way, which is typically something that a lot of projects struggle with, to stay relevant and to keep the attention and mindshare after the TGE high. Because you obviously have that cash out event and then people are just waiting for the next thing to happen. But this is not the case from a creator perspective with Kaito, because there's like always something to actively do.
With Kaito, so I have a couple thoughts on this. The first is the question mark. They've built a good product. They're like the flywheel's going well. Pac Moon, which was a meme coin on Blast at first, I think cracked the SocialFi nut in an interesting way. I was very excited about, and that was a meme coin. They've completely taken this now a business that has revenue, that is profitable, that now has like a flywheel of creators in it. 2 concerns about this. My first concern is they now have 2 stakeholders to balance. Before it was, we're going to reward yappers with like all this. It was a really easy and clear game to play. It was get as many yaps as possible if I'm a creator, and I'm going to get rewarded. Now with the token, I don't know. It's get the Kaito token, and you got to stake it, and then you got to vote, and they have now to balance on top of that. If they get companies that come in, it's no longer we're going to reward all the yappers. It's, oh, how do we also balance the Kaito token and make sure that they're getting rewarded and the stakers as well? It's a whole nother layer of things that, to me, I don't fully understand how they're going to play it out. They seem to be playing it out very well so far. And the price action seems less driven around how well they're doing versus how well they're navigating the tokenomics side of things, which is what it seems like Yuhu's doing really well. And then the other thing we talked about briefly today was the competitors, right? We have recently now like people have very little loyalty in crypto with these types of things. People went from, look how many yaps I have, to yesterday it was, hey, look how many quacks I have. Yo, check me out. Yo, use my referral code. Check me out on Quacks, wall chain. It's the new thing. And like, they'll just move on to the next thing if they feel like they can make more money elsewhere. I personally, if you're a written content creator, this is like the greatest thing ever for you. My frustration around Kaito as a creator, which doesn't really apply to that much of the audience, was I got slashed significantly, my airdrop, like significantly. And there's no explanation for it. It was literally, the only thing I can remember is I once said, hey, Kaito does not reward video creators at all. It's only written like what's going on there. And my airdrop got slashed by like 70%. And I tweeted at Yuhu about it yesterday. I was like, hey, what is this? Like, can you explain? He's like, it's the AI. Nothing we can do about it. So I was like, oh, okay, that's like awesome. And that's why I sold my airdrop. I was like, I did it out of spite, which I shouldn't have done. But I was like, no one has any idea what this AI thing is doing. We're just at the mercy of it. And these guys are just like, hey, you're like, if you say anything bad about it, we're slashing you. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Kaito.
That is very interesting. There was one of these bullet points as part of the list. I think it was called, the way they call it was value alignment. And so maybe how the AI interprets value alignment, I guess, would be very interesting to know, right?
Yeah, it's just like, we're going to tell you absolutely nothing about the intricacies of what this AI like does. What does value alignment mean? Like how does that get taken into consideration? And you're just at the mercy of it at the end of the day. But all in all, I think it's a good product, and they have insane mind share right now. And I don't think that's going to go anywhere. It's hard for me to be like, oh yeah, it's hard for me to take all these factors. And then the hardest part is going, okay, what does that, like, how do I value this? And at $2.5 billion fully diluted, is this still a good buy? And I don't know anymore. When it was at like $1.50, I'm like, okay, this is an interesting buy. And I wasn't even then, I still couldn't take the swing. But even here, that's what's hard for me to be like, is this a buy still or not?
It's a reasonable question. I've actually got a quick thought on that before we hit the final headline, but I'm conscious of time, Clemente. I know you said you needed to drop, so
yeah, I got to
drop.
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Great to have you. Really appreciate it.
Thanks again.
I've got to do it again. Take care, man.
Absolutely. See you guys.
So the one thing I wanted to share on this, when people are trying to consider value, and I know this won't make a lot of sense, but given that we sold our airdrops, but I think in the end, one of the things you always got to think about as well is teams need to deliver. They need to make sure that they're building out the plan, and you kind of need to see that. And we never get all of this information up front. And so there's always an element of trust. And historically, it's kind of a smart decision to sell airdrops. You've got your tax obligations. You've got the fact that most charts always go down. Even if you think a product is doing outstandingly well, it's usually 8, 9 times out of 10, probably 9 times out of 10, the wise thing to do to sell and then reassess. Now, in this case, Kaito just keeps going up because they just continuously delivering. They keep building out on this vision. And the vision that I'm seeing is two quotes that I saw from Yuhu recently. One, he talked about it as the distribution center of information, attention, and capital. And the way that it's kind of even loaded up on the site is that it makes me think of how BNB stakers on Binance will receive rewards via staking. And you can probably see a vision here now where Kaito stakers receive rewards by staking from ecosystem partners. It's like, if you're going to launch and if you're going to participate in this ecosystem, I don't know if it's guaranteed or whether it's not guaranteed, but we've got all these stakers who are obviously invested in the protocol, and therefore we're kind of giving you their attention because they're invested in the protocol. They're probably going to know who you are just because they didn't know you beforehand. Now they do because they're on the protocol and they're invested. You should be rewarding them as part of the process. And another quote I found interesting was, he said he spoke to VC, or I think he encouraged VCs, foundations, and ecosystem funds have been invited to consider having a strategic Kaito reserve to tangibly support projects with distribution and capital. So I found that pretty interesting too. A final thought here, Ledge, or should we just, maybe a final thought. Is this a buy here? Do you think it can go higher before we touch on the final piece of news?
Could go higher. I mean, I did.
No, you can't. It's hard to. It's a painful one, but
it's a painful one. I sold my airdrop for all those tax reasons, everything you had shared, obviously, and just the history of me selling airdrops. Definitely could go higher, but I also feel like there's so many other ways to, like, right now for me as a creator with my 5,000 yaps to participate in it. And quite frankly, I had a large airdrop, which means I also kept a large stake. Like, I'm still a pretty significant staker given all things, and given that leaderboard. So while I think that it could go higher, I am personally not a buyer here, which is not an expression of me not being bullish on the protocol, but just as a result of, like, my very individual and personal situation.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think I'm going to buy some back at some point. Maybe it needs to cool down a little bit, I hope. But I like the vision. And I think it's probably worth participating, given that, that's what I said. I said I needed to assess it from a zero-based budgeting basis from a business perspective. And I think from a business perspective, it's going to be useful. So for the modern market, even, I mean, I know I'd be buying it personally, but from our perspective, I think it would be good. Final thing, just to get people up to speed, it's not as entertaining or as interesting as price go up, but probably just worth people knowing before we close out the show. The news that from the Bybit hack of 1.4 billion, the investigative report concluded that there was malicious code originating in Safe Wallet's infrastructure. So technically, it wasn't something that happened technically wrong on the Bybit side. It was a malicious code originating in Safe Wallet's infrastructure. Remember, Safe is a multi-sig wallet that people use to kind of make sure, try to make sure that stuff is safer, because you have a variety of people who have to sign a transaction before it can take place. The safe statement said this, and I think it's just important to read out so you know what it is, because I think this has probably scared a lot of people who might be using safes for a hell of a lot of money, right? The forensic review into the targeted attack by the Lazarus Group on Bybit concluded that this attack targeted to the Bybit safe was achieved through a compromised machine of a safe wallet developer, resulting in the proposal of a disguised malicious transaction. The forensic review of external security researchers did not indicate any vulnerabilities in the safe smart contracts or source code of the front end and services. Following the recent incidents, this is like thinking forward, what you need to know. The Safe Wallet team conducted a thorough investigation and have now restored Safe Wallet on Ethereum mainnet with a phased rollout. I heard a few noises that people had stopped being able to use Safe, as if I don't know if the team had blocked it just whilst they got on top of what on earth was going on. They said the Safe Wallet team has fully rebuilt and reconfigured all infrastructure and rotated all credentials, ensuring the attack vector is fully eliminated. The Safe Wallet front end remains operational with additional security measures in place. However, users need to exercise extreme caution and remain vigilant when signing transactions. I think that's probably the key learning that you guys probably need to take away. If there's one thing that is probably the key takeaway, and although, yes, I completely agree that institutions need to do better, especially when they are, in effect, protecting a huge sum of funds. This was the point made by Hasu on the timeline. He said, while the safe front end was compromised, while safe front end and not Bybit infra got compromised, Bybit infra was also insufficient to catch what is, at the end of the day, a pretty simple hack. There's no excuse for not verifying message integrity on a second air gap machine when moving more than $1 billion of funds. So look, I think the takeaway here for me, at least, is it wasn't Bybit's fault as well. I don't even want to talk about fault here as such. The point is there was an issue on the safe side. In the end, verifying your own transaction on your side seems to be the most important takeaway if you are going to be hyper careful with significant funds. So yes, there was something wrong on the safe side. Yes, maybe people can be more careful on their own side when you sign the transaction. It's not very straightforward to read these transactions. We know what it's like when we sign them ourselves. But that is, I think, the key takeaway. Legendary, any final reflections that you think would be helpful for people as we try to, stay safe out there?
Yeah, two final reflections on that. First of all, the thing that I found scary with it is the part that you read saying the phased rollout of Safe on mainnet has been restored. And if you look at the comments, people, and I use a Safe myself to protect the part of my assets, weren't able to link the wallet, weren't able to access the services. I don't know if this was just on the front end, or if you were to directly interact with the smart contracts, you still would have had access to your stuff. But just this risk factor that you could be locked out of your safes. Again, I don't
freeze it.
Yeah, front end or back end as well, is something that I would find pretty scary. And then the second reflection is that just blind signing things sucks. And there is, you can get the ledger, you can get the grid plus, which I have with the largest screen on that. There's still a lot of transactions that are not readable that you essentially have to blind sign because you just see a hash and you have no idea what's going on. And that is definitely not how ETH should operate. And I know there's a lot of work being done in this direction, but this is not what should be the standard in 2025.
Completely agree with that. Everyone needs to do better, I think, from that perspective. Perfect way to end. Hope that information was helpful. Hope it was a good conversation on the media side as well, and like how it is possible in this space. Yes, we're here to trade certain assets and do those types of things, but also with a little bit of commitment and a bit of application, there are numerous alternative opportunities should you wish to commit to the industry for a slightly longer way as well. So I hope that was an interesting conversation with Clemente too. We hope you enjoyed it. We will be back, of course, tomorrow. Thanks to Ledge, as always, for co-hosting with me, and Clemente for joining us earlier. Thanks to everyone in the YouTube comments going off as usual. Appreciate you. Thank you so much for listening in. We'll be back again with you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.